In this podcast episode, Arthur Brooks, Harvard professor and social scientist, discusses the profound crisis of meaning and happiness affecting especially younger generations. He explores how social changes since 2008, exacerbated by lockdowns and amplified by technology, have rewired our brains and shifted our relationships with happiness, meaning, and connection. Brooks outlines the three essential macronutrients of happiness: enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning, and illustrates how their imbalance has led to widespread misery and a psychogenic epidemic. Throughout the conversation, he delves into the neuroscientific, philosophical, and spiritual dimensions underlying our modern struggles and shares insights into overcoming them. Brooks begins by tracing the emergence of what he calls a crisis of meaning that took shape around 208. Upon returning to academia in 2019, he noticed dramatic increases in depression, anxiety, and loneliness among college students, rates having tripled or more since 208. Unlike prior generations that thrived in the college environment through social connection, experimentation, and intellectual challenge, today's young adults report feelings of life being unreal or a simulation. This widespread unhappiness is not a biological illness, but a socially contagious phenomenon, psychogenic epidemic. Brooks emphasizes that happiness itself is not merely a feeling, but is composed of three macronutrients: enjoyment, pleasure in the moment; satisfaction, fulfillment from achievement; and meaning, a sense of purpose and significance. When these are blocked or imbalanced, arises. Arthur details these three macronutrients and their roles. Enjoyment is transient pleasure, but must be managed consciously to avoid chasing mere dopamine hits. Satisfaction arises from overcoming challenges and achieving goals, something that Brooks and the host both identify with strongly, especially in their academic and athletic pursuits. Meaning, however, is harder to access and where contemporary society falters most, particularly among highly educated young adults. Since 2008, the proportion of people reporting life as meaningless has surged alongside depression and anxiety. Paradoxically, young people today do not necessarily enjoy life less or lack satisfaction, but struggle deeply with meaning, often exacerbated by identity politics, cancel culture, and social isolation on campuses. A major driver of this crisis is the pervasiveness of technology and social media. Brooks explains that overuse of digital devices pushes individuals into left-brain dominant activity, focused on concrete, problem-solving how and what questions, while the right brain governs why questions, meaning, mystery, and transcendence. Excessive screen time, replacing real-world experiences, deprives people of the right brain activity essential for understanding life's meaning. This disconnection is especially profound for those born after the before times, the younger generation never fully experiencing life without a digital interface. The rituals and spaces that historically nurtured social bonding and meaning, such as meals without phones, face-to-face interaction, and nature, are eroding, contributing to loneliness and a sense of living within a simulation controlled by algorithmic gods. Brooks revisits and updates the hemispheric lateralization concept through the work of neuroscientist Ian McGilchrist, explaining the different cognitive modes of the brain's hemispheres. The left brain excels at solving complicated problems like building software or navigating routes that have definitive answers. The right brain is attuned to complex problems that are often unresolvable but meaningful, such as love, marriage, and the nature of existence. Society tends to offer complicated algorithmic solutions to these complex, nuanced issues, exemplified by dating apps, social media, and remote work, failing to capture their full human depth. Brooks stresses that right brain engagement involves living with ambiguity and mystery, marinating in why questions rather than rushing to concrete answers. The conversation moves into behavioral neuroscience and addiction, illustrating how all addictive behaviors, including technology addiction, operate through a doom loop where the solution, distraction, or self-medication ironically worsens the underlying problem. Screens and social media offer easy dopamine hits to alleviate boredom or anxiety, but ultimately deepen isolation and dissatisfaction. To break free requires deliberate clipping of the loop, acknowledging the problem and introducing intentional limits. Brooks suggests practical methods for moderating technology use, including designating tech-free times, first hour of the day, meal times, last hour before bed, tech-free zones, notably the bedroom and classrooms, and tech fasts like retreats. These help reclaim mental and emotional space for right brain processes and meaningful engagement. Brooks discusses a specific challenge among strivers, high achievers, workaholics, and ultra-competitive individuals, traits that many listeners might recognize in themselves. This group often mistakes happiness for achievement and views love and affection as rewards to be earned rather than freely given gifts. This earning mentality confounds personal relationships and happiness because love and meaning cannot be reduced to metrics or accomplishments. People driven by a need to be special may sacrifice happiness for status or external recognition, trapping themselves in continuous striving without fulfillment. Breaking out requires intentional practice of leisure, defined as loving, learning, and worshiping, activities done without immediate material reward. Brooks breaks down meaning into three interrelated questions. Coherence, why do things happen? Purpose, why am I doing what I'm doing? And significance, why does my life matter and to whom? Coherence involves building a worldview or belief system that integrates life's experiences, including suffering, uncertainty, and randomness. Purpose involves having goals and direction, but detaching from outcomes, embracing progress rather than perfection. Significance arises primarily from love and connection, both human and divine. People who lack significant relationships and a sense of cosmic love often feel meaninglessness acutely. Giving your heart away, loving and being loved, is the key practical route to discovering meaning. A considerable portion of the dialogue centers on love, romantic, familial, spiritual, as a primary catalyst for meaning and happiness. Brooks highlights that love is not an emotion, but a courageous decision that involves vulnerability and risk. Contemporary dating culture, driven by infinite choice and algorithms, undermines this by commodifying love and encouraging perpetual searching rather than commitment. The antidote lies in surrendering to relationships, embracing imperfection, and allowing oneself to be loved freely rather than trying to earn love through achievement. Further, intimate connection with one's partner functions as a sacred practice that nurtures both personal and spiritual growth, wiring hearts and minds together. Brooks shares an oxytocin marriage protocol, emphasizing eye contact, touching, fun, and shared prayer or meditation as relational tools. The episode explores the vital but neglected role of boredom and mental stillness in cultivating meaning. Brooks mentions experiments showing that people often choose painful electric shocks over silence, revealing our discomfort with boredom. Yet neural networks vital for self-reflection and autobiographical meaning-making, the default mode network, require moments without distraction. Technology's relentless entertainment functions as a boredom eradicator, hijacking this need and inhibiting self-knowledge. Learning to tolerate boredom is an essential, though countercultural, skill in regaining meaning and right brain function. Drawing on philosophy and clinical observation, Brooks distinguishes pain, a sensory neurophysiological input, from suffering, the added psychological resistance to pain. He argues that while pain is inevitable, suffering is optional and largely determined by one's willingness to accept and surrender rather than resist painful realities. The practice of non-resistance transforms suffering into a teacher and catalyst for growth. Embracing this mindset offers peace amid life's hardships, a viewpoint developed through his engagement with religious traditions and recovery communities. When addressing parents of struggling young people, Brooks stresses the importance of modeling meaning and managing technology use within the household. He notes that younger generations face an unprecedented neurodevelopmental challenge due to constant exposure to screens and social media, which disrupt right brain engagement. Simply imposing tech restrictions may fail unless parents themselves embody the practices they wish to instill: presence, love, spirituality, and meaningful connection. A parent's lived example is the strongest influence on a child's spiritual and emotional development. Brooks identifies transcendence, standing in awe of what is greater than oneself, as central to resolving the meaning crisis. Whether through religion, philosophy, art, nature, or intense athletic or meditative practice, moving beyond the self-psychodrama into a connection with the divine or the cosmos shifts perspective and relieves ego-centered anxiety. He recounts lessons from the Dalai Lama, emphasizing humility, perspective gleaned from moments like the famous Earthrise photo, and the value of recognizing one's smallness within the vast universe. Daily spiritual practices such as early morning mass, prayer, including the Jesus prayer, meditation, and joint rituals with loved ones provide concrete pathways toward transcendence and sustained happiness. Despite deep knowledge and awareness, Brooks admits his ongoing struggle with integrating these teachings fully, turning them from intellectual understanding into lived reality. The work requires discipline, waking before dawn, exercising, rigorously managing diet, and maintaining spiritual practice, and most importantly, intentionality toward consistently moving closer to fulfillment across the macronutrients of happiness. He describes this challenge as a lifelong pilgrimage, involving both joy and difficulty, to be embraced rather than rushed or avoided. Progress in meaning and happiness comes from commitment to this daily practice and from community and accountability. Throughout the podcast, Brooks credits spiritual mentors like the Dalai Lama and contemporary therapists such as Phil Stutz for helping articulate the unassailable truths essential for happiness. Life inherently involves pain, requires ongoing work, and is uncertain. Accepting these realities releases individuals from illusions and allows them to live more fully. These lessons underpin all practical advice and frameworks discussed. For Brooks, the intertwining of science, philosophy, and faith creates a powerful lens through which to navigate modern challenges, not by denying doubts or difficulties, but through relationship, acceptance, and continued striving mixed with surrender.